Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So Samsung's Galaxy A50 is selling well and the handset is still very popular in mid-range category. So in this video, I am gonna compare the A50 with the last year's flagship, the Galaxy S9. While as for the price, the S9 is gonna cost you way more than the A50 and the S9 Plus is gonna be even more. So let's get into the video, and starting off with the construction, the A50 is gonna have the gloss-stick construction, which includes fine plastic frame and super glossy curved plastic back, versus on the S9 it's gonna be aluminum frame and curved glass back, which is gonna be Gorilla Glass. So obviously more premium construction on the S9, but in case of a drop, the back glass of the handset can break and shatter, versus the A50 is not gonna be that vulnerable to drops, but in everyday use it is gonna get scratched faster. The screen will be 6.4 inches diagonally on the A50, and compared to this it's very small 5.8 inches on the S9 and 6.2 inches on the S9 Plus. So as for their overall size, the A50 is very large compared to the S9, so completely your choice, while the S9 Plus is equal in size compared to the A50. And as for the weight, both phones are very equal, while the S9 Plus being more heavier. So what about the bezels? So the bottom bezel, aka the chin, is slightly more thinner on the S9, and the side bezels are way thinner on the S9 compared to the A50, but there is a top bezel as well, aka the forehead on the S9, and compared to that there is a notch on the A50. So again, completely your choice, but on the S9 that forehead has two advantages which I will talk about in a second, and at last the screen is curved on the S9, which makes it look good. For security, the fingerprint scanner is on the back on the S9 versus its in-screen scanner on the A50. In the beginning, the scanner on the A50 was very slow, but now its speed has improved very much without compromising the security. Still not as fast as a traditional capacitive scanner, but not pain to use also. Face unlocking will be there too on both handsets, while the S9 is gonna have the iris scanner, which can be helpful in pitch black darkness. For connectivity, both are gonna have the USB Type-C ports and the headphone jack being on the bottom side. The loudspeaker will be on the bottom side on the A50 versus its stereo speaker setup on the S9, one being on the bottom side and the other one being the earpiece itself. In terms of the loudness, both will be very close, around 80 to 81 decibels, but you might like the gaming and movie watching experience more of the S9. So the forehead is housing the iris scanner and the loud earpiece speaker on the S9, and at last the phone will be IP68 certified, means less worrying about the water damage, while no certification on the A50. Coming to the display, so it will be Super AMOLED on both, with resolution of Full HD on the A50 versus Quad HD on the S9, so huge difference in screen sharpness, but on the A50 it will not be bad at all but pretty good, so even better on the S9. The screen on the S9 will be significantly more brighter, so higher contrast ratio, which will be very high. The S9 will also support HDR10 content, which the A50 won't. The always-on screensavers will work on both handsets, and as for the protection, both will be protected by Gorilla Glass. As for the performance, it will be the Exynos 9610 on the A50, which has an octa-core CPU, versus two variants of the S9, one with Snapdragon 845 and the other one with Exynos 9610, and both of these also have octa-core CPUs, but the CPUs themselves are faster on the S9 compared to the A50. How fast? In everyday use, the performance difference is easily gonna be noticeable. Both phones can run PUBG at high settings, but the GPU on the S9 is more than twice as fast as the GPU on the A50, so right now both would be great, but for lag-free experience for the coming 1 or 2 years, the S9 will be a better choice. The RAM is 4GB on the S9 versus 4 or 6GB on the A50, so no worries at all even with 4GB of RAM. And the storage variants will be 64, 128GB on the A50 versus 64, 128 and 256GB on the S9, and both will support the micro SD card. And at last, for the OS, it will be Android 8 Oreo on the S9, which is upgradable to Android 9 Pie, versus the A50 will be running Android 9 Pie out of the box, and for the future both handsets should get the Android Q update. The camera is 12 megapixels on the S9 with dual aperture mode, one being smaller f2.4 and the other one larger f1.5 for low light, versus its 25 megapixel sensor on the A50 with fixed aperture, which is f1.7, and this captures images in 12 megapixels by default. Now first of all, the camera on the S9 is not the same as the S8 and the S7. The sensor is completely different, while on paper specs might look the same. As for the detail in good light, the S9 will be ahead, while if you capture in full 25 megapixels on the A50, then the results might be comparable, but that will also result in more file size. As for dynamic range, the S9 is easily gonna win thanks to its shallow f2.4 aperture, means no blown out results, and that would be in auto mode. In HDR, the results will be even better with slight decrease in detail. In low light, guess which one is gonna be ahead? The S9 with its larger f1.5 aperture, larger sensor size means larger pixel size as well, and OIS. All of this will equal to brighter images, more detail and lesser noise compared to the A50. Samsung's own night mode, which is called the Bright Night, is now available on both of these phones, which requires long exposure and it drastically brightens the night and low light shots. But the S9 cannot take wide angle shots. The maximum field of view will be 77 degrees on the handset, while on the A50 the secondary sensor will be 8 megapixels in resolution and it's gonna have 123 degrees of field of view, means very wide, but in low light this sensor won't help you. And the third sensor is a depth sensor on the A50 for better portraits, while the S9 can also take portraits from its back camera, but as there is a dedicated sensor on the A50, the portrait mode will be better too on it. The S9 will have dual pixels face detection autofocus, means very quick refocusing. As for video recording, the A50 can only record 1080p videos at 30 fps, versus the S9 can capture 4K or 1080p at 60 fps. And as for stabilization, it will be software based stabilization on the A50, while the S9 will have optical plus software based stabilization, means it should be better on the S9, and the 4K at 60 fps mode will only have optical stabilization on the handset. Slow motion capture will be at 240 fps on both phones, while the resolution will be 720p on the A50 versus 1080p on the S9. And as for the super slow motion, the S9 already had it, while the A50 just received it via update, but on the A50 it's not exactly what it says. It should be at 480 fps, but while recording it keeps switching between 480 and 240 fps, and so when the captured clip is played back 16 times slower, it sometimes looks laggy. While on the S9 the super slow motion capture will be at 960 fps, so 32 times slower, and it does not have any problem. As for the front camera, so it will be 25 megapixels on the A50 versus 8 megapixels on the S9. Here you will have to make a choice because the sensor itself is high resolution on the A50, so more detail, versus on the S9 the selfie shooter is not that high resolution, but it is autofocus, means the focus is always gonna be right on your face, which will also result in more detail. And both phones will have the portrait selfies feature. At last for the battery, so it will be 3000 mAh on the S9 versus 3500 mAh on the S9 Plus, while on the A50 it will be 4000 mAh. So obviously screen on time will be more on the A50. With moderate use, the S9 will last you a full day, but if you're gonna do multimedia and gaming, then maybe you will have to recharge the S9 twice a day. Also, if you're gonna buy a used phone, then the battery performance will not be just like a new handset. The battery performance decreases by usage. The S9 will have wireless charging feature, while it will be slower than wired charging, and unlike the S10, it does not have the reverse wireless charging feature. And as for fast wired charging, the A50 will take about 1 hour and 50 minutes to fully recharge, versus the S9 1 hour and 40 minutes to do the same with significantly smaller battery. So this is it for this video guys. Let me know what you guys think about both handsets, and if you found this video interesting then be sure to like it, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace out.